Do you remember dancing in September? Never was a cloudy day? A little earth, wind, and fire to kick off fall and another exciting episode of Everything Zen, where we discuss all things in the Zenescope universe, from myths and legends to spirit hunters, Death Force, Robin Hood, and so much more. This is Zenescope. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and we're happy to have you back with us here in the month of September. I don't know about you, but it's my favorite month of all. You've got the return of football, the start of autumn, leaves are changing colors, cooler weather, jeans and sweaters, pumpkin spice lattes, and it's also somebody's birthday month. I mean, why celebrate one day when you can celebrate all month long? We're talking all things Mystere on this abbreviated version of Everything Zen, as Chris Samson dives into Mystere's early beginnings with creator and writer Pat Shand. Amber Curtis will stop by to share some fun facts about Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise as we get ready to embark on the scariest season of all. But first, let's check in with Chris for our podcast Word of the Month.
Oh, hello. This is Chris Samson, your medium and guide to the spirit world. Congratulations on making it this far to the realm of neither the living or the dead, but that of the undead. I have communed with all matters of shades, apparitions, and ghosts, and they have a very grave message of great import that I must impart to you. That's right. There is another podcast Word of the Month contest for the month of September. So, whenever you hear the sound during the podcast, we will reveal a secret word or phrase. Email us at info@zenescope.com with that word or phrase, and we will send you a promo code to use on your next purchase on Zenescope.com. Remember, folks, just one submission allowed per person. We will also be doing a special raffle drawing for 3 lucky listeners who participate in the podcast Word of the Month contest. Our first prize is a limited to 100 in-store collectible cover for Dance of the Dead #1, Cover E by Elias Chatzudis. Our second prize is a limited to 100 in-store collectible cover for Mystere #3, Cover E by Sabine Rich. Our third prize is a copy of the Best of Zenescope pack, comprising of both spooky digital and physical comic issues and a limited to 150 Mystere #1 variant collectible cover illustrated by Keith Garvey. This Mystere cover is only available with this special pack. So, be sure to listen carefully and email us at info@zenescope.com for your chance to win. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Chris. The podcast contest runs throughout all of September, so you can send us an email to info@zenescope.com any day or time up until midnight on Thursday, September 30th. The winners will all be contacted the first week in October. Now, if you're a fan of the French-Canadian circus performers, Cirque du Soleil, you may have ventured out to Las Vegas to see the longest-running, award-winning show at Treasure Island called Mystere. The show started back in 1993 and features flying trapeze artists, teeterboard and bungee jumping acts, as well as world beat music, all focused on the origins of life. In English, it's called Mystere, but the word actually comes from the French word for mystery. It's mystère, something that baffles understanding and cannot be explained. Cirque du Soleil has the most popular use of the term mystère in pop culture, apart from Zenescope's very own Mary Medina. Like many mutants in the superhero world, Mary was an outcast, born with magical powers. The daughter of Jorge and Estrella Medina, Mary had to learn how to control her powers at a very early age. But it was not easy, as she was able to raise pets from their eternal slumber, only to have them follow her home, which really freaked out her parents. In fact, her parents were so concerned they tried to exorcise her demons with the help of a local priest. But the exorcist performing the ritual ended up dying in their attempt. Unable to come to terms with her powers and the conflict with her parents, Mary ran away from home and lived on the streets in San Diego. She met a boy named Shadow, fell in love, but when they kissed, you can pretty much imagine what happened next. Her powers drew his life out of him, and she ran away again, eventually falling into the hands of Shang and Sela Mathers, who found a place for her in Arcane Acre, where she would be free to study and learn how to wield her special powers, which include death touch, necromancy, telepathy, magic, and one of the best powers of them all, flight. Mystere has appeared in over 60 different issues at Zenescope, ranging from her first appearance in Grimm Fairy Tales number 113 to Day of the Dead, Dance of the Dead, a 5-part Mystere series, and her latest appearance in April's Grimm Spotlight, where she takes on Voodoo Dawn. To get more into the nuts and bolts of Mystere's origin story, Chris Samson sat down with Pat Shand to talk about her unique look, the importance of Arcane Acre, how her story became a catharsis and metaphor for death, and what the future may hold for our beloved Day of the Dead heroine. Here's Chris and Pat.
Welcome to a special segment of Everything Zen. I am one of your illustrious hosts for this special segment, Chris Slamson. And today we have a special, amazing guest to talk about our feature character of the month, Mystere, or Mary Medina. I am so happy to have on this particular creator with us, none other than Pat Shand.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I actually, this is funny. The name of the character, the new code name is new to me. I always in my head saw it and thought mystery, but it's Mystere. That's nice and French, huh?
Yeah. I mean, that actually plays a lot into like a lot of her playground. She's set a lot in like New Orleans, Louisiana, you know, like lots of French influence and origins there. So we'll get into it. But before that, I want to give a quick bio, a quick list of accolades for our awesome guest today, Pat. So Pat Shand is a comics writer and novelist. He's wrote long runs on Robin Hood, Grimm Fairy Tales, Van Helsing, and Charmed for Zenescope Entertainment. He is also known for his crowdfunding and creator-owned works, including Destiny New York, Snap Flash Hustle, Prison Watch, and more. On top of that, he has written for such titles such as Adventure Time, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, Avengers, Disney Villains, Lady Zorro, and more. Wow, Pat, that was such a list. You're very talented, and you are very prolific. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it started with you guys. You know, I've been lucky enough that when I had no gigs to my name besides a few pages of Angel, Ralph gave me a gig, and then both Ralph and Joe put me on, you know, and helped me make my lifelong dream of being a writer into fruition.
That's amazing. And that actually feeds into our first question. Now, I know we just kind of touched on it in the bio, but you've been a longtime collaborator and creator for Zenescope. Can you describe some of your early time at Zenescope, your early works, and like claims to fame, like favorite stories, like just like a quick recap of your time with us?
Yeah, for sure. The early stuff was kind of like scattershot in that they were more random gigs instead of long runs. Like my first ever Grimm Fairy Tales title was the 2011 holiday issue. I got that because I reached out to Zenescope at first to write the Charmed comics. They were going to bring me on to write something that was a miniseries, and then that ended up changing to the whole season 10. But that was delayed for so long that I kept getting more annuals, more holiday issues. And eventually I was brought on as an exclusive writer at the same time, 2 titles with Godstorm and Robin Hood. And that, you know, I ran with those titles for a long time. Like Godstorm led to this long crossover called Unleashed, which then led to this miniseries called Ascension. And it all fed into the next thing. And that was one of the most fun aspects of working with Zenescope, is that every year I'd go down and Raven Gregory would be there. We'd meet at this writer's summit, and we would just continue the ongoing story of Zenescope. And sometimes it would be focused on what I was doing, like with Unleashed. That was this company-wide crossover that was centered on the Unleashed book. And then the next year, it was Age of Darkness, which was Joe's overall plan for the whole universe. And then we'd all kind of tie into that. We had our own titles with Robin Hood. Raven was doing Wonderland. And it was just this, fun time of doing stories together and then going off and doing them separately and coming back and just figuring out the overall vision together.
You're building a lot of foundations, creating art, creating lore. Grimm Fairy Tales and the Grimm universe is so huge, so expansive, especially when it comes to these crossovers, which is very relevant to my next question. So you're credited as the lead writer who worked on the first ever appearance of Mystere. This is Grimm Fairy Tales, Volume 1, issues 113 and 114. For those who are not so sure about the issue number, this is like the beginning stories of Volume 3 of the Grimm Fairy Tales Arcane Acre trade paperback series. So Mystere makes her first ever appearance here. Could you tell us more about your role in the creation of the character and a bit about this premiere story that she appears in?
It kind of ties back to the entire creation of Arcane Acre at all. I went to L.A. I don't even know why we were there, but I met with Ralph and Joe in L.A. And I remember we were sitting in front of this hotel kind of figuring out what to do with Grimm Fairy Tales after 100 because Joe was going to continue the story of 100 in Realm War. And I was taking over as the lead writer of Grimm for 101, the main title. So the idea was to go in fresh with something entirely new, and we wanted a bit of a more YA slant. So we decided to go the X-Men route and do it as highborns in a school led by Shang and Sela. And when we picked who was going to be in there, we were just talking who was best for the story. And that was the first 12 issues. As I began to write, I had Violet, I had Kira, I had these characters, Haley, who all visually had blonde hair. And I was starting to notice how similar the cast looked. And that was a problem that we took care of kind of early on by, one, we turned Haley into this being of water. I thought, though, that it was time that when we came back for our, season 2 arc, which was issues 113 to the end of the series at 125, that I wanted to bring in characters who had a much more different visual look. And that led to Mary, who has this, she's a Day of the Dead power where her face becomes this skull-painted action. And then we had Lance, who was a Knight of Wonderland, and he had this plant power. So we decided to introduce these characters who you wouldn't have to see what they were wearing to see who they are,
And for those who don't know, Mary Medina Mystere, she's clearly one of my favorite characters. I tend to lean more heavily into like the darker, more bloody, edgier characters. So again, like Gretel's one of my favorites. I love Van Helsing. And Mystere, she's this awesome, mysterious, badass heroine with the powers to summon, control, and communicate with the dead. So metal, so cool. Were there any major influences and inspirations that were instrumental in creating her? For me, when I think about Mystere, I think about like X-Men, New Mutants, a lot of different parallels. And when I think of Mystere, I think of Rogue. She has like this incredibly amazing and potent ability, but it brings her a lot of pain. It brings her a lot of like heartache. And that's what I was thinking about. But what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely about the pain and the heartache for her because it tied to the overall theme of Arcane Acre for me, which was the passing of the old guard to the new guard. The idea was always in Arcane Acre to end with Sela being dead and Sky being the new guardian of the Nexus. So my theme was, I asked myself, why as people get older, why as we become adults do we look back, why do we hate the music of the kids? Why do we hate the slang of the kids? What is this tension between adult and child? And the idea is that when an adult sees a kid beginning to become an adult, they feel older, they feel closer to death. So this was just a book that really centered on the idea of no matter what happens, everyone does die, and even these kids will eventually become the old guard. So a lot of the powers of the kids did focus on death. For instance, Ali can see ghosts. except the ones that he wants to see. Haley ends up becoming a ghost, and Sky has a power that relates to this dark realm of death, the Shadowlands, and all the powers kind of tie in that way. In some way, are a metaphor for death. Even Lance, Lance's power, he has this, this plant-based power that ties into life, and we explore that aspect through him. So yeah, it all tied into death the same way, but Mary's a bit more literally.
Would you say that like that connection to death or like her traumatic past, is that your favorite element of the character, or is there something else?
Oh, it's hard to say. I remember liking her thought process. I always wanted her to have a kind of like left of center thought process, where I always remember this one moment writing her where at the time of writing, I was either in San Diego or moving from San Diego to New York. There was this bit that I had where Mary was in San Diego and she was just noticing things about people there. Like she, for example, noticed how in San Diego, homeless people are in a much different situation than the homeless people in New York, right? And she thought about how if she were in the situation, she would take a cross-country journey to San Diego to live there as this homeless paradise. And the truth is that's a very, fanciful and ignorant thought about what it is to be homeless. It was young and naive and hopeful. And that's what kind of stands out to me about Mary, is that when I was writing her, she was in the situation and had this power. She was looked at, as a very dark figure by her parents. She was thrust out. The fact that she was able to keep hope and still be a character who, when I wrote her, there was a certain lightness to her. She was, she still had her youth. She didn't have her innocence corrupted by what she'd gone through.
And then, leading into that, I remember that specific set of panels very distinctly. And like maybe like a page or two afterwards, when she's on the run, you have like it becomes like a running theme of these types of villains who see her connection or her mastery over death, and they want to try to abuse that or usurp that. Like the very first villain she encountered was Andre Carson, who's like, oh yes, give me your power, and then he calls himself Voodoo. Sela's like, no, you could be more than a tool or a pawn. You could be something greater. And I love that that's one of my favorite things about Mystere, is like this sort of very self-contained redemption arc. Then she's like, no, screw you, Voodoo. And then she like summons a bunch of zombies and he gets eaten alive. It was awesome. Very cool.
Voodoo was a fun villain. And I hope that I'm not remembering this wrong, but I think that this is what happened. For some reason, I didn't see the artwork on the cover when Voodoo was created. So Voodoo appeared differently on the cover than he did the interiors. And then later on, I came up with a fix that the appearance of Voodoo on the cover, the spirit of Voodoo ends up possessing a guy who looks like, and it made him even of a darker character. That was the route that we took. So that was cool, that what I thought and was a mistake at first ended up adding to that character.
And I think that's a great part of the creative process. Sometimes like Bob Ross, sometimes you have like happy little accidents, but they turn out to be like even better than you expect, or it just works. So yeah, it's awesome. So I want to move away a little bit from Arcane Acre. You wrote some other arcs featuring Mystere, including one of my personal favorites, a crossover event called Grim Fairy Tales Apocalypse. So in this story, Mystere and her friends assist like the larger Grim Universe heroes like Robin, Hades, Van Helsing. So basically they had to take down the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Yeah. So metal. What did you enjoy about that story? And what other Mystere stories do you enjoy in general?
All right, so that one in many ways was a cap to what I had done on multiple titles. I had just come off of Arcane Acre, and I had just finished Robin Hood, and Robin Hood ended with this thread where my cat Hoyt's going crazy downstairs. It ended with this thread of the horsemen who were released in Robin Hood number 20 would eventually come back 1 year later. And if Robin and her friends can't solve the issue, they're going to come back annually and be this annual apocalyptic threat. So it just so happened that it gave us this great opportunity to do, it could have been handled in a Robin Hood one-shot, but my idea was to just make it into this big overall crossover that takes elements from every run I've ever done. You know, there's Van Helsing, there's Hellchild, all those main runs into one, you know, cohesive story that, you know, at the time makes a final statement on the characters, because my intention was that I would do miniseries, you know, but there wasn't really any plans for any super long runs, because it's, you know, it's so unusual in comics to have 4 actually, including Van Helsing, long ongoing runs on a character. And it's kind of cool now that I'm back and writing some more Van Helsing, because it's such a unique thing to Zenescope. Like, you don't see, and this isn't anything negative about them, but you don't see one writer having, you know, 40-issue runs on multiple titles at Valiant. You know, that doesn't happen anywhere else besides Zenescope, DC, and Marvel. You know, that's very unique to this company. So I knew that, you know, since I wasn't going to be exclusive anymore, there weren't going to be, you know, 40-issue runs. So it would be cool to just, you know, pay tribute to what I had done with this big, meaningful crossover that was, you know, truly cinematic, truly frightening, and that touched on what I loved about all those series and characters.
It was such a cool run, and I think with that run there were so many players, so many characters like interacting. But like Mystere had her moment to shine. Like, she's facing off against death. Oh, so awesome. Were there any other stories of Mystere that have come out? Like, there's a ton. There's like Day of the Dead, Dance of the Dead, the Mystere standalone series, and then Joe just finished up at least a month or two ago by now. Grim Spotlight, Mystere, Voodoo Dawn. Is there any other stories that have come out of Zenescope with Mystere that you particularly or were attached to or a fan of?
I'm excited to read the annual. But what sticks out to me, though, that I have read is the first one, Day of the Dead. I remember when I saw that in the publishing schedule and Joe told me what it was. I thought it was cool that a character that was, you know, in Arcane Acres, she was, you know, just part of the cast. And that Joe saw her and was like, that could be her own franchise. You know, that could have her own series, that character. And that was cool to me. It was cool to me seeing, you know, that growth that way, because it's always such a risk, because, you know, people associate Zenescope with the idea of a familiar character with a twist, Robin Hood with a twist, Van Helsing with a twist. It was always a risk to try a brand new character, but those risks have paid off, you know? For me, it was Hellchild. Hellchild was a character who I had teased for years, you know? Back in Unleashed, Hades was trying to resurrect her through this box, Pandora's box. In Van Helsing, we have flashbacks about her. And then one day, I just pitched to Joe, what if she comes back and she's like this and has her own title? And that could have been a Van Helsing title, but Joe believed in it enough to give it its own series. So, you know, seeing characters like that who aren't based on myth or legend, but are based on what, you know, the writers at Zenescope at the time have built is really cool to me.
Hell yeah. And it has its own life, has its own unique following. I know, you know, there's a lot of people who are listening to this right now who are huge fans of Mystere. So, you know, congrats on like building like a cool foundation at Zenescope.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She was super fun to write. And that whole arc, you know, the whole Arcane Acre arc, you know, it sticks with me as something that I'm very proud of. It was a fun run that was, you know, I found it to be an emotional catharsis to write. And the artwork is just, I look back at many moments as some of the most iconic battles that I've written. You know, the battle between Bloody Bones and the kids at the graveyard, the Horde in issue 111, 112 at the school. Just fun stuff. You know, I'm very grateful to have written it for 25 issues in a row. It was a super cool time.
Hell yeah. And you're still doing amazing work for us right now. Like you just mentioned that you're working on Van Helsing versus the Invisible Woman, which is an awesome issue. Yeah. And so if you were to write an upcoming Mystere story, like do you have any ideas or narratives that you would like to explore or you're tinkering around with?
Oh, I would definitely go darker horror than I had with her in Arcane Acre. You know, she's older now, and I would match the tone that Joe and the previous writers have done, while, you know, getting a bit more into the darkness about what it means to be someone who has that power as you get older. You know, how does that power change within you, and how does it change you?
Awesome. That's very cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. Like for me, I know it was like a very, very minor moment, but I'm a big fan of like the past coming back to haunt you. So what I was thinking, like tying back to Mystere's origins, you know, when her powers started manifesting, you had all these neighborhood animals started reanimating and falling around. And then her parents summoned a priest to do an exorcism on her. The priest died. I would love to see the priest come back, and he's like a revenant, and he's like the new big bad against Mystere. It's like, oh, you destroy me, I'll destroy your life now, Mystere.
That's sick.
And like some unholy paladin revenant type of creature. That'd be awesome. Yes. Anyway, sorry.
It's all good. That's cool.
So I want to end it off with two final questions. Are there any projects you're working on right now in the future that you want to pitch or plug? And for fans who are completely new, what's like the coolest thing about her and the biggest reason why people should check her out and give her a try?
For Mystere, I'll say that she has a unique power, and I think it's cool that someone who has a power that ties her so closely to death still has the will to want to live and to fight for what's right. That's awesome about her. And also just on a more aesthetic level, her overall look is very unique, and I think it's very, very sick. She was, I believe, I hope I get this right, I believe that her design was by Anthony Spay, and he did an amazing job. As far as what I'm working on, for Zenescope, I'm doing some Van Helsing stuff. I'm doing a two-parter called Return of the League of Monsters and a Hellchild Spotlight issue. On my side of things, just on the creator-owned stuff, my series Destiny New York continues. It's monthly from Black Mask. It's an ongoing series, and the trades come out from my company, Space Between, and I'm currently doing a Kickstarter for the 5th anniversary art book of that series that just launched today. You can find it at tinyurl.com/DestinyNY artbook. And that's there. That is a full-color book with 2 new stories and some covers by artists like Terry Moore, Jen St. Ange, Linda Cedric, and some great, great iconic comic book artists. And that's where I'm at.
Amazing. So best of luck on that Kickstarter. This podcast will go up in a few days. So we'll definitely send some traffic your way because you're awesome, Pat Chan. You've always supported us throughout the years. We want to support you. And for everyone who's listening, if you're interested about that Kickstarter or you want to ask questions to Pat about Mystere or all the stuff he's working on for Van Helsing, you can find him online on Twitter and Instagram at Pat Shand. And you can also find him on Facebook at facebook.com/Pat Shand. Any last words, Pat, before we're out? We have to go back to the graveyard and fight off some zombies.
Just thanks for having me. These are super fun to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pat, for all that you do. And this was awesome. Check out Mystere. Check out Arcane Acre. Fantastic book. Check out everything Mystere, but especially Arcane Acre. We gave a lot of love to that graphic novel run here. And that is it. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Chris and Pat. If you'd like to learn more about Mystere, stop by Zenescope.com, and midway down the homepage, you'll see a section entitled Mystere 101. It's got everything you need to catch up: Mystere single issues, Day of the Dead, Dance of the Dead, graphic novels, and some really great Mystere merchandise. That's our classic doorbell sound, and it can only mean one thing: our podcast word of the month. For September, the word is Medina. That's Medina, as in Mary Medina, aka our featured heroine, Mystere. Now, let's take a quick peek at some of the exciting events on the Zenescope calendar to round out the month of September. One of my favorite Zenescope stories this year is Hans Rodionoff and Adam F. Goldberg's Possessive. Adam, of course, is the creator of the long-running comedy series, The Goldbergs. Possessive has that same quirky charm to it. Issue number 2 dropped this month, and things have gone to a whole new level for its main character, Todd, and Lady Jane Baker, the murderous spirit who lives in his attic. Trust me, It's such a fun read. Both issues are available on Zenescope.com right now. September also includes new releases Robin Hood, Night of the Hunter, and Grimm Fairy Tales Volume 2, number 52, which has Sky going all cyberpunk. And for all you Alice fans out there, I'm happy to share the news of a new Wonderland annual coming out on the 22nd. As two sisters aim to restore peace and imagination to a world teetering on the verge of madness. That's the Wonderland annual, Reign of Madness. The new metal comic, metal cards, serial cosplay, and sticker set have all been released for September and are available for subscription on Zenescope.com. The September Cyberpunk edition of Don McTagg's series are available now, featuring Belle and the Beast. And if you're participating in the 2021 Collectors Club, don't miss the Holiday Collectible by Ian McDonald for September, which releases on September 25th in conjunction with National Comic Book Day. If you're a fan of football, we've got you all covered with 10 unique pigskin-inspired full-sized art prints, plus a limited magnet and sticker set. And finally, we're celebrating superheroes all month long. We've released a new Metal XL card set monthly subscription with the first set featuring a bunch of your favorite superheroes. Plus, the first 50 subscribers will receive a very special villain cosplay card. We'll also be hosting a 2-day superhero virtual con that runs from September 16th through the 17th. Ralph, Jason, Chris, and Amber may or may not hop into a phone booth to change into their alter egos, but they have promised all kinds of superhero collectibles, prizes, games, and fun. That's Thursday and Friday, September 16th and 17th. Stop by our Facebook page or Zenescope.com for more details.
Welcome back to another installment of Chris's Corner. Today, I'm here to talk about Grimm Fairy Tales, Day of the Dead, specifically Mystere's first ever standalone miniseries, and in trade paperback or graphic novel form. Joe Bruscia and Don P. Marquise join forces in this drama full of mystery, betrayal, and horror. And it follows the fledgling necromancer, Mary Medina, in search of answers about her dark powers. Mary leaves the safety of the Arcane Acre Academy to follow a clue in the form of a mysterious letter all the way to the Big Easy, that's right, New Orleans. Mary soon finds herself caught up in the machinations of an ancient secret society known as the Order of Tarot, which is a shadowy organization that operates and shows up in many other stories taking place in the Grimm universe, with designs to unleash and control her powers for ill-begotten gains. And having taken hostage several innocent women as well, Mary Medina and her new mysterious companion Talisman explore the hidden underworld of New Orleans while on the run from assassins, agents of death, and practitioners of ancient voodoo magic. Now, Bruscia and Marquise's core strength of the story is building on the foundations and origins and backstories of Mary Medina to much further detail than her previous adventures. This being her first standalone story, I thought it was really awesome that Joe thought Mary Medina was a character that warranted her own series in the first place. And there are many reasons why this was a smart move. Her power set is awesome and terrifying. Lots of narrative elements and avenues you can take it down. Her character design, like her physical design, is very iconic, very striking. And it's an original IP, original new chapter or facet, which is within the larger universe. Mary's powers to raise the dead are completely terrifying. But as the readers, we follow her journey to discover the true source of her powers. Now, much of this, we are looking through the POV of Mary Medina. She herself doesn't know where they really come from or what they mean or what sort of ends they're meant to achieve. All of her life, she has always assumed, or people have told her or planted the idea in her head that her powers were a curse or the end result of demonic possession. However, this story takes a string and pulls on that thread, and we see that Mary Medina's power is tied to a much greater cosmology and mythos of the Grimm universe than we all were led to originally realize. you see that her powers have implications to affect other aspects of the Grimm universe, such as Oz, the Realms of Power, and the Court of Pentacles. It makes for a really captivating character-driven story that also draws in and develops the origins and as well as a budding relationship with the story's other main recurring protagonist, Talisman. An ensemble cast of artists bring life to this story, but we have to give a special shout out to the creative team of Alan Otero on interiors and Marco Lesco and Jorge Cortez for their work on Chapter 5 on colors, which is the penultimate issue. In the climax of Chapter 5, Mary Medina undergoes a powerful ritualistic transformation into an unchained force of nature. Like, this is the issue where she actually becomes the Mystere persona. And the impact of the scene is really punctuated by striking poses and stark detail. And there's this one scene where she's floating in her brand new costume that makes for one of the most memorable scenes of the entire series. All in all, Grimm Fairy Tales Day of the Dead is a must-read. It's currently available on our web store, so you can go right now to Zenescope.com to pick up your copy, alongside other classic Mystere storylines such as Arcane Acre Volume 3, or the more recent one, Grimm Spotlight, Mystere Voodoo Dawn, the one-shot, also written by Joe Brusha. So check those out, and I hope you enjoy them. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Chris. Before we wrap this edition of Everything Zen, let's check in with Amber for some Laurie Strode Halloween fun facts for September.
Hiya friends, fun facts guru Amber here. Not sure if you realized it, but here at Zenescope, we kick off spooky season early. With the latest entry in the Halloween film series releasing in October, I thought it would be fun highlighting one of the most iconic final girls of all time, Laurie Strode. The shy babysitter who can't believe she forgot her books to study on Halloween night was played by then unknown actress turned scream queen Jamie Lee Curtis. Director John Carpenter admitted she wasn't the first choice, but fellow Halloween creator Deborah Hill thought she would be perfect due to being Psycho star Janet Leigh's daughter. Due to the changes in films and comics, it's hard to know what is actually true about Laurie. In one storyline, she's adopted, and her actual name is Cynthia Myers. In another, she's not. In the newest storyline, she has one daughter and has been married a few times. In another, she has a son. Then, somewhere out in left field, her daughter has a son due to being stolen by a cult. Okay, I can't really hate on it because Halloween 6 is the debut of then known as in the credits, Paul Stephen Rudd, aka Paul Rudd. So this gets a little bit more confusing. Laurie has technically appeared in 7 films. In the timeline featuring her daughter, she died in a car accident prior to Halloween 4. In the timeline including 20 years later, her character died at the hands of her brother, Michael, in Halloween Resurrection. In the Rob Zombie film franchise, she was in both films, but portrayed by Scout Taylor Compton, with a new take on the OG film. But in the newest timeline featuring Halloween Kills, she is still alive, no longer related to Michael, and has a daughter and a granddaughter. Laurie has been featured in books, comics, video games, and throughout 60 different decades. She is a part of one of the largest film franchises of all time and is crucial to the part of the rebirth of the franchise. While there have been countless storylines, revisions, and some weird tangents I'll never get, there is one thing for certain. Laurie Strode is a badass female, and we can't wait to see her go full survivalist mode in Halloween Kills.
And that'll do it for this quick edition of Everything Zen. Special thanks to Chris, Amber, and our Mystere creator, Pat Shand. I'm your host, Mark Sells. Thank you for listening. And throwing it back to high school English class with this beauty. All the lives we ever lived, and all the lives to be, are full of trees and changing leaves. Thanks, Virginia Woolf, and happy fall, y'all. We'll see you all again next month, right here on Everything Zen.